Okay, everybody, I'm Craig O'Boyle. I am sitting here with Iggy, or Yegor, however you like to be pronounced, and Patrick. We are ChatSOB, your friendly AI assholes, and we're here to start our inaugural, I don't know what you want to call it.
It's like
but chat group, discussion group,
right,
and talk,
yeah,
and just hash out big issues, talk about things that are on our mind, and just have a good time doing it while we're drinking some beers. So hopefully you enjoy.
Cheers to the inaugural meeting.
Cheers.
There's no minutes, there's no board.
Okay, guys.
It's just ChatSOB.
I think the question is what do we want this to be?
Right. So
we got three assholes or sons of bitches here.
Here's what I remember. So let's just kind of bring into context how this happened. Right. We're sitting at YPN one day. Maybe 2 days, maybe it was months of talking about wanting to start something that had real conversation, right? That's what you said at YPN. You're like, hey, we should just do this on a blog. And that's kind of what started this. Am I wrong? Maybe it's been in the back of your mind since then or before then, but...
Well, I mean, you and I have for several years had fantastic discussions about macroeconomics, real estate, deep stuff, whether it's personal, business, financial, spiritual, whatever. So we have always talked about it would be a good idea to get together and have that discussion. Now, Iggy, you and I, we've been more online connected than face-to-face connected for a while, but you publish your Friday updates with some pretty similar stuff to what we talk about. And, we had beers the other day and, we were talking about how we want to do this, and we kind of felt like you'd be a good fit too, because we're all of the same mind in terms of watching the world, watching the economy, watching things, and we're all kind of, let's just say opinionated. Right? We're not really one to hide our opinions.
No, I think most people feel like they get us.
I'm sure there's plenty of people we know who have us on mute on Facebook.
I think people
blocked.
Or just blocked. They might be totally blocked. Yeah.
I think it's important to just marry the house and date the rate, as long as I can cash the check. And so that's my opinion. I'm just kidding, man.
Just buy houses. We don't care.
Sign on the line that is dotted, and everything will work out the way it's meant to.
I mean, for me, the thing that I liked the best was we had a very deep conversation one night that I'm not going to even bring up the subject matter because it's like this is how we got here, and I think it's such a deep conversation that it's a video by itself, right? So you had brought up this deep and we were probably at least 4 or 5 YPN drinks in, and
what? I don't drink. What are you talking about?
If you had been, though,
this is my first beer ever.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a good show.
It's gonna be a good show.
Get the trash can ready.
And we had this deep discussion, and I was like, and you said right there, you're like, this needs to be a fly on the wall. Like if you were a fly on the wall listening to this is a good conversation, and it was. It felt like it was probably midnight, but it was probably only about 6 because we had been drinking since 4. But for me, I was just like, man, people are missing out on some of this, good stuff. I felt like we had some good topics over the years. And we go back, as we just said, you had that picture on the wall, 2011. For us, we've been hanging out at YPN since we were kids.
We're not kids anymore?
No.
Is that what you're saying?
No.
Hey, I can go to YPN as long as you go. That's my theory.
Still going. See you tomorrow.
Is that tomorrow?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Is it? Change my plans then. So the goal then, obviously, is to share our thoughts, have good discussions, and I think it's open to feedback too. If people see this and they want to challenge our thoughts or they want to challenge our views, none of us are opposed to that.
No.
We love good discussions. We love teasing out arguments sometimes. And sometimes that's the truth, right? You're putting something out there with friends just to see, does this make sense to anybody else, or am I totally wrong? So I think the usefulness to anybody that wants to watch these videos too is it's just perspective on whatever they're doing with regards to markets or their life or anything else. And I think that's a good thing. Where we go with this, what this becomes, I have no idea.
We're selling T-shirts though.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah, check out our merch tag. Check out our merch tag.
ChatSOB. Right?
We need 3 people.
And why is it called ChatSOB? I think, the biggest thing right now is ChatGPT, right?
It's
Right.
4, 5,
Right.
6.
Well, we're kind of, I'm sure we've all been called SOBs from time to time.
Yeah.
So we're just tagging on to the same, riding the coattails of what's popular in the world right now. And who knows, the T-1000s might be marching in the streets in a few months, and this won't matter anyway because humanity's dead from a nuclear war, and maybe we'll get spared because we're the Chat SOBs.
Well, we all
and
you throw them in a foundry.
Thinks we're their cousin,
That's
right?
exactly
We know how to
Thinks
kill
we're
the
their cousin.
T-1000s, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Why don't we start with maybe just a couple things? Backgrounds? You want to talk about who we are?
Yeah, Iggy, start.
Well, before I forget, I just wanted to mention on the Chat GPT thing versus the Chat SOB thing. I think the Chat GPT thing obviously is, people see it as revolutionary. I mean, you're like basically making it super user friendly to perform a very complicated series of Google searches. I want 10 answers in one question, right? So, but the answers that you get are these, very like range bound, like defined answers. The opinion is extremely neutral. Like it's this or that, right? Like and like you don't want to hurt people's feelings, and like AI is limited to what its scripters are feeding it. And I think the whole Chat SOB thing is like, well, this is not really scripted, and we may say some shit we actually believe in. God forbid, dude. I don't know. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I'm just saying, like, the whole idea of like a hegemony of thought through artificial intelligence is kind of ugly to me, because it's like if everybody asks the same question and everybody gets the same answer, that reminds me of communism in a fucked up way, But my background, I was born in the Soviet Union in 1985. That thing went to shit in 1991. We moved here in 1995 with my mom. In a super roundabout way, I became a real estate agent about 10 years ago. I've always been interested in markets just because it just fascinates me, like how groupthink works in terms of money being the translation of the language. Like how things move, how pieces fit. It's always kind of interested to me, but being in the real estate market, I look at it from our local standpoint and sometimes struggle to make it fit my own narrative, and so I think having conversations with you guys and just having conversations with the outside world about like you said earlier, like, hey, am I crazy like for thinking this? Like just being able to have a cross section of people to run ideas by, just to make sure I'm not just like off my rocker on my opinion,
Yeah.
But yeah, I own a brokerage. I live in the Springs. I have a kid. That's
Pretty good downline.
Yeah, a solid downline. The thing is, like, I don't know if you guys know this, but the real reason I'm here is you guys are my first 2 people.
I can't wait.
And then if you each hire 2 people,
It's by the time you're done.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It's billions.
Did you just think that up?
with a B, dude.
Is that yours?
With a B.
Man, I look where this is going.
Yeah.
I'll be at your office tomorrow.
And I like beer. Lagerado.
Yeah.
All right.
Sponsor us. Sponsor us,
Please,
Odell.
yeah, we'll take a sponsor. All right, Patrick.
Yeah, so, okay, first, for me, one of the things I really appreciate that I think this channel is, right, is the fact that we want to grow, right? I don't think we go into most situations thinking we're absolute in our ideas. At least not when we are all discussing. We challenge each other with the ideas, even if we don't agree with it. So I expect this group with us, whoever watches, even if it's 2 people, to be like, I don't agree with you, and I'm fine with that. I feel like I want to grow and learn, and obviously it is impossible to know everything. So I would say if at any time you think I'm wrong, I'm okay with that. I will.
I always think you're wrong, Muldoon.
I feel like you play devil's advocate on 90% of what I say. But for me, that's kind of the standpoint of where I like this channel is I think we're all better together as we start to work through these problems, right? And we've had some big problems over the last 3 years. And for me, I tried to be really good on social media and be like, hey, here's my opinion. But then if you guys followed some of that stuff, I got beat up a lot. Like people were just straight up rude. Now I look back at it, I'm like, well, I was right, and these people aren't even freaking talking to me now.
Where
right?
is
Like,
your mask?
Where's my damn mess? So that the Cerveza really changed stuff.
Yes. I do think we have to call it that too, right? Or this won't end up
and I am
anywhere.
stealing that from another YouTuber because we know it flags it. But the Cerveza like made people very black and white, and it was like, hey, this is what was said. I'm like, but there's other thoughts out there. They're like, no other thoughts. So in short, here's where I sit. I'm a Colorado Springs native. I was born at Memorial Hospital. I'm a second-generation realtor. My dad opened the company in 1980. He tried to make me to go to college, honestly, because he didn't want me in real estate. And the first year I went to college, which was at UCCS.
That's how I know your dad loves you.
I failed out of college.
That's the truth.
And so, if you guys met my dad, he's a pretty black and white guy, and he was like, there's other stuff
I might
out
have to
there.
interview him sometime.
You probably have to bring him in.
Yeah.
And so I failed out of college. I got put on suspension, and my dad was like, what are you going to do? And at the time...
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm going to fuck with you forever.
You could be...
What were you studying?
You could be a broker. I didn't even know. You're in your first year, so they're like throwing you through all these arts classes and all this stuff, and I just wasn't going. And so...
failure to appear is how you failed out.
Failure to appear, yeah. My grades were good, and my absence wasn't. And so they kicked me out, and my dad, at the time, we had a property management company called Rayleigh Realty that we were buying. And they did not want us to own it as Muldoon Associates till we paid it off. And it was like 95 units. So believe it or not, in the state of Colorado, you could get your broker's license without any education at all. You just took extra classes. You didn't have to have 2 years in the business. So I just run that extra 2 weeks of classes. I become an employing broker right off the bat. And I own my first company. Rayleigh Realty is the brokerage. The funny thing is, of course, in this city, everybody knew Muldoon Associates. So every time I would show up as Patrick Muldoon with Rayleigh Realty, they thought like, what did you...
Is there a rift in the family?
Yeah. So 4 years in after we paid that off, we combined them. Obviously, we manage a ton of properties, and it's been good. I mean, I like real estate.
I'm sure that'll be one of the things we discuss in one of the, videos or however the format ends up being is what you just described is terrifying. You dropped out of college and got a real estate license and took over 95 units. Luckily, you're a good dude, but somebody else could have done the same thing.
That's right. Yeah. And, my dad was over me,
and the standards only went up like this much.
Right.
So
some stuff out there.
Something we can talk about later.
But now I'm licensed 29 years, so I consider myself, still new to the business, but learning every day.
Do you have an egg-shaped Lexus?
I have an egg-shaped Lexus. Buying my Tesla.
What's funny is when I go into me, there's going to be a lot of similarities.
Yeah, because
right?
you're second generation.
Yeah, I'm Craig O'Boyle. Hello. My background, I'm from Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
I'm native.
We're Irish.
We're Irish. Muldoon and O'Boyle. If you can't tell, we're Irish.
So,
Irish. I don't know what this guy is.
Russian, I guess.
Pure Russian. So many states in Russia.
Yeah.
Pure Russian is like saying pure American, man. It's like
I don't know. I know they're fucking up Ukraine and.
I mean, the Mongols came through and raped through, so there's some of that blood. The Polacks got
so you're
strong
saying you're
for a
related
while.
to Genghis?
In a way,
It's something like 10% of the people
a
on the
lot
planet
of
are
dudes.
related.
Yeah,
to it.
that's true.
Then the Polish got powerful, then the Swedish got powerful, and there was just all this courtship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Break the horses right off on the women.
That's right.
You've seen that.
But Russian, according to my birth certificate, and the
Well,
alcohol,
we'll
together.
try not to beat you up for not being Irish too much.
Yeah.
Now, I can't say I'm 100% Irish. But
Now,
I got a lot of Irish.
I would say my dad always says Darwinism wasn't survival of the fittest. It was he who breeds the most wins. And he says the Irish obviously did that because you celebrate St. Patrick's Day in every country. So I think he's got something there. I believe he's not wrong with that.
I don't like snakes. I love potatoes, man. So I think
all right, you do know
Yeah,
that. So from Colorado Springs, real estate broker as well. I got licensed in October of 1995 when I was 19 years old. So I'm 27
Very
years,
similar.
a little bit less than him. My plan was not real estate. I grew up on Rambo, right? So I was always ready to attack the Russians and the USSR, right? Like
Red Dawn.
Yes, Red Dawn. That's my favorite movie of all time.
Such mind manipulation with Hollywood at the time, right?
So I
Reagan era.
joined the United States Army before I even graduated high school.
No shit.
And I went to basic training. I did what's called a split-op program. So I went to basic training between my junior and senior year of high school. And then the idea was then you go to training for your skill side after you graduate high school. I went that route because I knew I wanted to go to college, and I looked into ROTC,
okay.
but I wasn't a good enough student, and the ROTC guy I went to college at UCCS in Colorado Springs here, and the guy there said, well, if you enlist, it might give you a leg up to also get into the program. So I enlisted, I went to basic training, then I finished my senior year of high school, and then I had to go to the skills training, but it started a little bit late. I got back a little bit late, so I couldn't actually start my first year of college. And I had a free semester, basically. And so my dad was a guy who'd been in real estate here in the 60s, was out for a long time. Most of my childhood owned a police equipment store, and got back into real estate after he had sold that business.
What year's that? Approximately.
Once he got back in?
Yeah, when's he jump back in?
I'm guessing, it's hard to remember, but I'm guessing I was probably a sophomore, junior year of high school. So
he took a pretty big break.
Yeah, no. Most of my childhood, they owned this company.
Okay.
And then eventually he sold it. And he was like, why don't you get a real estate license? You could just kind of help me until you start college. And I was like, okay, because back then it was like 12 days and you were licensed.
Dude, yeah.
Can you fog a mirror for 12 days?
For real.
Right.
Then your employee broker was 10 more.
Then you go get a license. Well, I was fortunate that I got that license, and then started working in the business while I went to college the whole time. It was funny. I felt like when I first started college, I was like, I'd learned so much just in the brief few months and stuff with real estate that I was kind of in these business classes, and I was like, that I could pick things out that were wrong that these professors were teaching. And
they never ran a business, so you.
No, some were good. I don't want to say they never did. Some were good and stuff. But I ended up loving it because my dad at the time was working primarily in the commercial world. I would say 70-30 commercial to residential, and he was putting together Pikes Peak International Raceway. Mm-hmm. It was his baby. He kind of put the investment group together that came in, and he had a long time. I mean, he's an amazing guy. If I ever tell his story, I should write a book about him or something. But he had a background in NASCAR and stuff, and so I got to tag along on these meetings about building a $50 million racetrack. And
in the middle of nowhere, by the way.
Kind of. I mean, it was a horse track.
Correct.
Right. That's.
But I mean, when you look at where that horse track was before the expansion of the city,
right,
it was kind of in the middle. Right.
But it, being that it had a history and stuff like that, is something a little easier to convert.
Sure.
I think he thought. So anyway, that became a thing. But I got to go to these meetings, and my eyes got really big. You're a 19-year-old kid, and a guy flies in on his jet to do a $50 million deal. I thought, oh man, I'm going to be rich. Mm-hmm. Right. Little did I realize, real estate's so easy. Little did I realize that, likely the billionaire who can build a $50 million racetrack isn't going to hire the 19-year-old realtor to help him do the next deal. Mm-hmm. The good thing is I got to go to school. I got to learn the business. Eventually, as I was getting ready to graduate, it was very clear to me, because helping my dad only made a percentage of what he made. And his stuff, he did a lot of development-related stuff. It wasn't uncommon for him to have a humongous deal, but it took 2 years to close.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need food with my meals, so I better go sell houses that close in 30 days. So I almost got out of the business, but a friend of mine who was at the company opened his own. He said, hey, I've got extra leads, come work for me. I went and did that. And I kind of got a rhythm at that point, and it was off to the races. From there, it was building a business. And so for the last 27 years, I should say 22, excluding the first 3 to 5 years, I've been building my own business, which has gradually been residential, became very much involved in investing with partners to start off flipping. Now we do things from development. For a while I had a property management business, but I luckily sold that after several years. I opened up I had an insurance company that worked side by side. Got out of that, thankfully, for what I put into it. Never made a dime out of that. But I do some development, I do some sales, and I do some stuff. And other than that, my passion is getting on a bicycle and riding until I feel like I want to fall over. So that's me.
Can I redo my intro?
Yeah.
Your guys' intros are so much better.
I mean, we didn't like start with nothing in a different country and come here though. Like that's phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, instead of redoing it, why don't you just
not
expand
redo
on it? Just tell us more about you, man.
Yeah, I was just a kid, man.
I mean,
I moved here when I was 10, and now I'm 37.
But I don't know you. I've had years to get to know Patrick.
Well, I guess I'll start with how I got into real estate, because I mean that's kind of like the common thread is, dude, on an accident. So in 2010, I was bartending at Rock Bottom Brewery. I had a job there since like 2006, something like that, roughly.
The one in town here?
Yeah, the one they built it. I didn't quite like open it, but I joined up like 2 or 3 weeks after it opened.
I was going to say I didn't know it built in 2010. I thought it was newer.
Yeah, I did too.
It was like 05, I think it opened up.
Oh.
And so, I mean, I've still got agents at my office that work with me that, those are friendships from bartending back then. A couple of guys that work with me now. And so I started as a server and got into cocktail serving and then bartending, because it's kind of like the hierarchy of the restaurant business. The closer you are to the bar, generally, the more money you make as in the service business. And so when I was bartending, I really liked to work the well, right? Because it's like you versus the printer. Friday nights, just the fucking printer just like going nonstop, and you just like, how fast can you make these drinks? Get these things out there. You don't really have to talk to anybody. You just kind of like zone out, dude. And it was nice. It's almost like meditative. And then I remember people like waiters and waitresses would walk up to me and they're like, man, I fucking hate this job. And I'm like, that's awesome, dude. I'm glad you realized that. Like, you should quit. If you hate it that much,
you're like, I'll take all of that business
and go do something else, dude. Like, don't be miserable here. Like, I feel you. Like, it sucks sometimes, but like, you should go do something else. And then one day I walked up to my buddy Murph behind the bar and I was like, fucking hate. And I hit the little printer button and I rolled off some thermal paper and I wrote my 2-week notice on it. Because that was like, I can't be a hypocrite. I just said I fucking hate this job, man. And so I quit without like really having a replacement. And then like I was supposed to have another like bartending gig downtown, and I had just bought my first house in 2010 downtown.
You bought it while you were a bartender?
While I was a bartender, yeah, man. I bought a house for... I paid a flipper profit, and I bought it for $125,000. House with a cottage. I'm getting ready to list it now for $400.
Nice.
It'll be nice to get it. I think I will. But so I bought the house, and then like 5 months later, I'm unemployed. Because I'm like, I just quit my job. The job I was supposed to...
I actually think that's not uncommon.
No. And the job I was supposed to have lined up didn't line up. And I remember I went to Moab for a week with this chick, and like we went hiking and like did this whole like week in the desert thing. And I came back and I was like, oh shit, I don't have a job. Like, my life is not what I thought it was when I was going out to the desert. So then I remember, I was like 27 at that point, and I was looking into like joining the Air Force, dude, and like just like scrambling for options, man, because I had like maybe $2,000 in the bank, like maybe. And I was like, well, the mortgage is $700, and like
you're gonna burn through that quick.
Beers are $1,000, so like I'm fucked. But then. Fast forward a couple of years and some shit I don't want to talk about on ChatSOBs, and I got together with a buddy of mine whose phone kept ringing, and like his...
We don't mind that you had to do,
It was
to stay solid.
It was men seeking men on Craigslist, and it was.
I wish I'd have made money off my list, but I never made a dime.
It wasn't money that I made, but it was. No, I'm just joking, but. Some shit and some stuff and whatever, but like I figured out a way to keep the house. And one of my buddies that I was working with, his phone kept ringing all the time, and I was like, dude, like, who gets this many fucking phone calls? Like, this is absurd. Like, you don't have that many friends. Like, you're not that cool, dude. And he's like, no, dude, I flip cars. And I'm like, oh, like, you flip cars? Like is everyone okay? Like, what do you mean? Like, and he explained to me, he's like, well, I buy cars here, and just resell them and, flip cars. And so kind of started to see like the inefficiencies in his business model right away, where it's like, wait, you're buying cars within this market and you're selling them within this market, and people hate you because they saw the same car a week ago for $1,000 less, and just shiesty little things like that. So we figured out a way like to go to Denver, pull cars out of a much larger market, bring them down here, fix them up properly, and then we had a group of friends that would basically just sell them. So our job was to buy cars and make sure that they were the right cars. And then our friends' jobs were to fix them and sell them, and we kept the circle going. And I think the statute of limitations is up on this. It wasn't exactly like a legitimate business, but it kept the bills paid, right? And so
were the cars coming from across the border, and there was something else being sold in the cars?
No, nothing like that, man. I mean, sometimes the cars would go south of the border, but I think the requirements...
Oh, so then they eventually came back with... I bet you could upsell those cars. Yeah.
Who knows what happens in a house, too, though. But I started to get bored, man. We got to a point where we were getting, 10, 12, 15 cars a month, and, there's transit, and time is, taken, and you start to hear the same story over and over again. And so after 3 years of doing that, I was like, well, shit, it's 2012 now, 2013 roughly, and I heard houses are kind of cheap these days. So I was like, well, why don't I just try to flip a house? We're flipping cars nonstop. HGTV says you can get rich off of flipping houses, and it seems like you can do it in 60 minutes with commercial breaks. So I should probably try that. And again, I'll admit the names of some of these people. Dude, the way I got into real estate was, honestly, I'm fortunate to be where I'm at today, because my first 9 months in real estate was an introduction through fraud, and cops got shot at, and the dude that I bought my first house from went to prison for 4 years.
Was his first name Ryan?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if we need to admit it. It was in the Gazette.
Dude, I bought
Medlock was his name, right?
Mutual of Colorado.
Yeah. Okay,
So, dude, all right. Now,
if he's been to jail, it's public record.
Yeah,
it's not like we're throwing anything
get this.
That's false.
This is how I got into real estate to begin with. It's 2000.
He's probably telling this story right now. He's like, yo, you know Iggy? I got him to where he's at. You think that's his story?
So
he's gonna come looking.
He's gonna come.
Profits.
He can.
When we make $15 off this,
he can come find me, man. So all right. So 2010, 2009, I moved back from Portland, Oregon. I was out there briefly with this chick I used to date, and I moved back, and I was renting a room from a friend of mine. I was paying this dude $400 a month. He was one of the bartenders at Rock Bottom, and I'm just like, cool. I'm back to Colorado. I got my steady job. I got my steady income. I've got a place to live. It's myself, my dog, my snowboard, my Xbox, and my TV.
Yeah, you're living your life.
I'm good. I'll meet women. I'm good. I didn't even have a bed, dude. I had a sleeping bag. I slept on the floor.
You're literally living the life.
6.5 months I slept in a sleeping bag, dude, on a pad.
I had roommates like that.
It was fine, dude. I mean, I did not mind it because, thank you, beer. You got me through a lot. But so then I was like, shit, dude, I'm paying this guy $400 a month. I'm paying $100 a month for my storage unit out in Portland, and houses are like a song, dude. So I start, shopping for things that are around $800-900 a month at those interest rates back in 2010, which were 5.5 roughly or something like that back then. And I started shopping, and then I went to Ent, and I hit the little sign-in kiosk at Ent, and I was like, hey, apply for a loan. I literally have no idea what I'm doing. I was 24 at this point, bartending, don't have any real estate experience. And this dude overhears me, and he's like, oh, dude, you want to buy a house? And I was like, yeah, dude. And that was Ryan. That's how I met him. So
well, there we go.
Literally at the bank, he intercepted my message basically. And he I bought my first house from him. It wasn't smooth or clean or great, but 13 years later, it's Sure is. That's fine. And
looks good.
Then I bought a flip from him, and this is where I started learning about like these investor courses about like, oh, like, like the purchase price is this and the ARV is this.
There's no word I hate more than ARV.
Oh, it's the worst
acronym. It's
so official sounding.
Yeah.
It's the after repaired value. If you guys don't know what an ARV is, and I'm sure we'll touch back on this more later, but like an ARV is like, Craig wants to sell me a piece of shit that he doesn't want to fucking deal with. So he tells me that the ARV is $500,000. I call Patrick, and he's like, dude, that thing is worth $380 at best. And
but you trust me because I used ARV.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it sounded really good at the time.
But I'm a dumbass, so I'm like, well, Craig is probably being conservative, so it's probably $530. So, and that's how people get burned on their first flip. And I almost did, man. I bought a flip in 2012. The only reason I made money on it is because a purple Doppler cell went over it and wiped the roof and the siding out. And I was able to call my insurance company and get that. That's the only reason I even came close to breaking even.
It was a learning lesson.
Dude, I remember I was at Bear Creek Dog Park with my dogs, and I look at my phone, and the Doppler radar is purple, and I'm like, fucking thank God. This could not have worked out better. Completely legitimate, hail. And got in on a whim, dude. And then after that, I bought another flip, and things started going south for Ryan, and I started meeting much more normal people. I met Bruckner right around 2012 or 13.
Yeah.
He was sitting in the back of the
Top Secret Black Cloak Society meeting.
The Top Secret Black Cloak Tinfoil Hat Society meeting.
At are you the Grand Master?
No, but he always have to leave and go there and come back to YPN, and I always joke. So even today, he'll call me and be like, yeah, I'm at the Black Cloak Society.
He still goes, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Brock would just sit there quietly in the corner.
He took it all.
Yeah.
Bro.
He's
a spreadsheet guy.
But it was funny because, back then, I didn't know at all what real estate was. Like you said earlier, you get this illusion of I can just make so much money so fast, it's so easy. And then, there's people that pick up on that and try to sell that to you. And then, there's other people that, are very capable, solid, good, solid-headed investors that are in that same group. And then you got, solid vendors within the same group, and then criminals right alongside of them that
ended up going to jail.
Multiple.
When did you and I meet? I was trying to think that through because the funny
been,
thing is
after I got licensed, dude, probably sometime in 15.
Okay,
it was at a Chippendales concert, right?
We were both dancing.
It might have been.
We were both dancing.
Oh, you were the dancers.
We were the dancers.
You're making money off of it.
I always appreciate two things about you.
He might be able to get away with it, but I'm sorry.
First,
this guy works out like a demon. I don't know. You're looking a little soft for,
Girls like dad bots, dude. They'll throw money at you. Go get a gym membership.
I feel like the one thing I appreciate about Iggy is his hard drive to just learn.
Super hard.
And I think that's so unique. Now, I am, if anybody follows my Instagram, I am anti-hustle culture right now. I think
what do you mean right now?
Well, I think at one point I grew up thinking...
Define hustle culture.
Yeah, I think when I think we use it as an industry, #hustle, yeah, I think as an industry, it's sell your soul at any cost to look like you're productive, and I think that what it does is actually takes away from actual living to give you what appears to be living.
Right.
And I think we've taken this to the next level.
Right, kind of like the idea of how hard I go and drive is the most important thing of life versus balance.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm with you there.
And we pushed it so hard, right? Yeah. So I think you're trying to find balance, but the fact is you just don't fail because you're going to keep trying until you get it. The thing I appreciated about Craig, ever since I met him, which I remember, one of the times we had a conversation was 2011 or 12. We were sitting around that fire pit over at Red Martini. And we were just talking.
I've been there a few times.
And I just remember this guy came over and he was talking about foreclosures. And he was like, yeah, I deal in foreclosures. And I'm like, now at that time, right, I'm legitimately dealing in foreclosures?
Right. Obviously, I was still
yeah, you were with Wells Fargo. Yeah, obviously, we had a pretty significant amount of business at that time. And this guy's, so I was just like, oh, well, that's cool. He's like, yeah, I sell so many REOs. I'm like, So I ask who he is, and I don't know him. And then you like look at him. So then I like reverse this. I remember this it was such a funny experience because then I say, well, tell me about REOs. And you sit there and you look at me like, what a dick move. Because obviously, this is like 2012. I've got like 75 listings.
Right.
And he starts telling me all about it. I'm like, you don't say. So like a bank forecloses on a house? Whoa. And he's like, yeah. Like, and that's what I deal in. I'm like, you don't say. And he like walks off into the dark and you look at me and you're like, well, dude, that was kind of a dick move.
But you know what? There's nothing wrong with calling out. There's a lot of bullshitters.
There's so much in this business, right?
I think the worst thing that happened to the real estate business was it ended up on
social
reality TV shows first, right? Like where like can you imagine any other business that has people's faces on their business card?
No.
Right? Like
no dead
that was not a thing in this business until it started ending up on reality TV.
That's right.
Maybe like
right. And now people think, you know, they're now it's on steroids with social media, of course, but I mean maybe we're guilty of it too because we have this fucking
But this isn't really about real estate. It's not about real estate.
Right?
It will touch it. It will touch on real estate.
We are controlled by
Hit me up on Instagram. AI realtor.
We're controlled by our AI overlords who just are like, hey, you're such assholes. You better, put it out there. So anyway, I don't know. Do we want to keep going with this video? I mean, I think it was a good intro.
No, I think this is.
I think this is a good start. I think we're open. I think a good test here is let's see if anybody actually watches this all the way through.
If we get 3 of you, we need to know what you
have
think.
Questions that you think are topics, we're open to even talking.
You know what I would love is
let's see.
I would love to see people suggest stuff to us.
That's what I'm saying.
Even if it's not in our wheelhouse. Like if you're like, what do you think about hairstyles, right? Like you throw that our way, we'll do as much research as we can, and we'll come back with our topic.
Okay.
We just want to get together and drink beers and talk shit.
Yeah,
I think
actually, we don't really give a shit if you like this or not.
No, I mean that's kind of part of it. But I mean, I think it's good. This is a good start. This is what we wanted to do is kind of get an intro out there.
Yeah.
Obviously, by the time you watch this in 5 years, we're going to have our own studio. I keep saying this because I think we have
hashtag big things coming.
Big things coming. Yeah. So if you guys watched. A lot of people, so this is the funny thing, if you guys watch this.
Did you get recruited pretty heavily?
Oh my God. Okay, so I'm going to leave this here because I did actually get a recruitment.
Yeah, I
did. And I'm not going to say who it was because they're probably going to watch this, but I literally get a message that said, hey.
For real?
For real, I'm not even joking. Like, if I read the message, they're like, listen, if you're moving, let's talk about EXP. And then I said...
I don't know if you could. The funniest thing to us is we're like as independent as you can get in this business. We're not. None of us are franchisers.
No,
we all own our own company, and we are all like.
We're the antithesis.
Thank God, we own our own company.
But then they said no, but really. If you're really thinking about let's talk, which God
bless them. Though,
I appreciate that.
You're in the real estate business. It's all about overcoming objections.
That's right. I thought it was a great move. If you're watching, I because it was good, and you know who you are. And the funny thing is then they're like, okay, I'll keep an eye out for your move. Which of course we're not moving.
Right.
This business has been here for 42 years in Colorado Springs. It's hard for me to shut that down. I got a little bit of pride behind that brand, but. If I did, I don't know if it'd be that company. I mean, I don't know. You never know. Things could change.
I think if we were to be moving from our companies because
ChatSOB took off and we just
like we get paid.
We appreciate everybody dropping in. Like on this first video, we want you to share it. Hopefully,
maybe
you learned a little here,
but that makes you mad.
Our future videos,
no matter who you are,
they're going to be all over the place, right? We could be all over the map with these. Now, the next one that we were talking about bringing up is maybe the economy and kind of what we saw coming into the last recession.
What's
and bringing that history. They don't happen anymore.
It's just a thin gray line.
They're the things that make the Fed print more money.
Oh,
so creation of money.
We'll see what that happens.
We'll see what.
I think we wrap this up.
Let's wrap it up, guys. Appreciate you.
Cheers.
All right.
Cheers. Mine's empty.
Mine's empty.
You're alcoholics.